It's day 3 of the book, My Father's Dragon. So, we read the first day, we read about the father finding the cat and bringing him home, bringing him saucer of milk. And then the mother got very mad. Here's the picture. The mother got very mad at the father about the cat. She didn't like cats. She thought they were dirty and she didn't like them at all. So anyway, so then that went on, but the father really liked the cat. And then the father always wanted to fly in an airplane in the second chapter. And the cat said, well, there is this dragon way over on Wild Island. The cat had walked across the rocks. Remember the map? See if I can find the map. There isn't the map here. So they're on Tangerina Island, and the cat walked across the rocks to Wild Island. And they had a dragon over there that could fly over the lake and help the people. But they were mean to the dragon. They had him chained up, and they just weren't nice to him. So the father said, actually the cat said, I bet if you went over there and made the dragon escape, that the dragon would let you fly him if you were nice to him. I bet that'd be a plan. So the father packed up everything that he needed, a toothbrush and clothes and everything, put it in a suitcase, and he ran away to try to see what could happen. He snuck on a boat so he could go over to the island. That's kind of exciting. So now we're on chapter 3. And what is the name of chapter 3? Remember the father was sailing on the boat at the end like that? So let's see what happens. This one is called My Father Finds the Island. So that's good. So here we go. My father hid in the hold, which is part of the boat, for 6 days and nights. Twice he was nearly caught when the ship stopped to take on more cargo, but nobody saw him. But at last he heard a sailor say that the next port would be Cranberry and they'd be unloading the wheat there. My father knew that the sailors would send him home if they caught him. So he looked in his knapsack and took out a rubber band and an empty grain bag with the label saying Cranberry. At the last moment, my father got inside the bag. Oh my goodness, he crawled inside the bag. Knapsack and all, folded the top of the bag inside and put the rubber band across the top. That is so funny. He didn't look just exactly like the other bags, but it was the best he could do. So here we have 3 bags that they're going to take off the boat. And the father crawled into one of them to pretend he was like cranberries or pretend he was grain or something they were delivering. That is so funny. Soon the sailors came to unload. They lowered a big net into the hold, which is part of the boat, and began. The other sailors looked at the bag too, and my father, who was in the bag, of course, tried even harder to look like a bag of wheat. Then another sailor felt the bag, and he just happened to get a hold of the father's elbow. I know what this is. This is a bag of dried corn on the cob. And he dumped my father into a big net along the bags of wheat. He got all mixed up. This all happened in the late afternoon, so late that the merchant in Cranberry, who had ordered the wheat, didn't count his bags until the next morning. He was a very punctual man. He was right on time, and he was never late for dinner. The soldiers told the captain, and the captain wrote down on a piece of paper that they had delivered 160 bags of wheat and 1 bag of dried corn on the cob. But the dried corn on the cob was really the father in the bag. How funny is that? They left the piece of paper for the merchant and sailed away that evening. My father heard later that the merchant spent the whole next day counting and recounting the bags, filling each one of them and trying to find the dried corn on the cob. He never found it, because as soon as it was dark, my father climbed out of the bag, folded it up, and put it back in his knapsack. He walked along the shore to a nice sandy place and laid there to sleep. Look at it. The father made it to the island. He got off the boat, and now he's sleeping under a tree. My father was very hungry when he woke up the next morning. Just as he was looking to see if he had anything left to eat, something hit him in the head. It was a tangerine. He had been sleeping right under a tree full of big, fat tangerines. Tangerines are like an orange. And then he remembered that this was the island of Tangerina. So the island of Tangerina had tangerine trees. They grew wild everywhere. My father picked as soon as he had room. He picked them, which was 31, and started off to find Wild Island because that's where he wanted to go to. He walked and walked and walked along the shore looking for rocks that joined the two islands. Because he wanted to go on those same rocks that the cat went on. He walked all day, and once when he met a fisherman and asked him about Wild Island, the fisherman began to shake his head and couldn't talk for a long time. That's weird. It scared him that much just thinking about it. Finally, he said, many people have tried to explore Wild Island, but not one has come back alive. We think they're eaten by wild animals. This doesn't bother my father. He kept walking and slept on the beach again that night. It was beautifully clear the next day, and the way down to the shore, my father could see a long line of rocks leading out to the ocean. These same rocks that the cat was on. Okay, so he's on Tangerina Island, and here he found the rocks, and that was going to take him to Wild Island. Yay! Let's see here. And way, way out at the other end, he could see a tiny patch of green. That was Wild Island. He quickly ate 7 tangerines and started down the beach. It was almost dark when he came to the rocks, but there, way out in the ocean, was a patch of green. He sat down and rested a while, remembering what the cat had said. If you can, go to the island at night, because then the wild animals won't see you coming along the rocks and you can hide from them. So my father picked 7 more tangerines, put on his black rubber boots, like your rain boots, right? And walked for dark. It was a very black night, and my father could hardly see the rocks ahead of him. Sometimes they were quite high, and sometimes the wave almost covered him, and they were slippery and hard to walk on. Sometimes the rocks were far apart, and my father had to get a running start to go from one to the next one. After a while, he began to hear a rumbling noise. It grew louder and louder as he got near the island. At last, it seemed as if he was right on top of the noise, and he was. He had jumped from a rock onto the back of a small whale, oh my goodness, who was fast asleep and cuddling up between the 2 rocks. He ended up on a whale instead of a rock. The whale was snoring. Oh my goodness, look, see the whale? So the father's jumping across the rocks and he's jumped on the whale. And the whale was snoring, he was making noise. He was making more noise than a steam shovel. So he never heard my father say, "Oh, I didn't know that was you." And he never knew my father had jumped on his back by mistake. He was sound asleep. For 7 hours, my father climbed and slipped and leapt from rock to rock. But while it was still dark, he finally reached the very last rock, and he got onto Wild Island. How fun is that, huh? He made it. That is so fun. And he even stepped on a snoring whale. And that's the end of chapter 3, so that's it for today. Anyway, we'll see what happens tomorrow in the book, okay? Ciao, Ariella.